Since the rise of the internet, the history of development behind different pieces of media, including video games, television shows, and more, have become increasingly easier to find than they once were. In fact, there are many websites dedicated to just this topic that often detail and document the history of a particular media's development. However, with that being said, there certainly are still quite a few pieces of media whose development stories are easier to come by than others. When it comes to anime, many Japanese companies are very protective of their assets and tend to keep the details of development under wraps. And while big franchises might eventually see concept art, development details, or more revealed sporadically through art books or even just a fanbase's dedication, many smaller franchises have their development details shrouded in mystery, such as the case of Bakugan Battle Brawlers. Now, the case of Bakugan is admittedly a bit more complicated than companies simply being protective of their IPs. The Bakugan project, as it's referred to in official concept documents, is actually a partnership between a few different companies, the three primary ones being Spin Master, Sega Toys, and TMS Entertainment. While the three companies worked closely on some aspects of the project, a project this big means that not only was communication between the companies kinda rocky, but also it means that development history is hard to trace to just one company. However, that being said, some early concept art has begun to surface on Yahoo Auctions Japan, as well as a few other Southeast Asian auction sites where most of the development for Bakugan was taking place. In this video, we're going to go over some of the art that was recently purchased, as well as its significance to the overall development of Bakugan. Heavyweight Dragonoid, as it's referred to in these concept sheets, is the first design we're going to be taking a look at today. Heavyweight Dragonoid is very clearly an early design for Delta Dragonoid. As you can tell, while the monster form is quite different from the final design, the ball form is practically identical to the final product, save for a few technical differences. That being said, there does appear to be some marks on this piece of art that indicate the design may have still been in the process of being tweaked or altered. The next Bakugan we're going to be taking a look at is known as Full Metal Dragonoid, the planned third evolution in the Dragonoid line. Unlike its previous evolution, Full Metal Dragonoid only bears similarity to its final design in its monster form. Its ball form, on the other hand, is almost completely different. In contrast to its final ball design, it appears to have two fold-out back horns and a standard heavy metal ring. Marks on the concept art show that the designers may have been planning to add an upward folding horn similar to its pre-evolution. Its monster design bears many more similarities to its final counterpart, Ultimate Dragonoid, but still shares some differences, most notably the pattern on its stomach and wings. The next design we're going to be taking a look at appears to be a prototype version of Infinity Dragonoid. Unlike Infinity Dragonoid in the anime, which is simply a retool of Ultimate Dragonoid, Infinity Dragonoid appears to have had its own design that's more similar to Naga's toy, which we'll get more into later. It has the upward-facing horn and two fold-out horns that face forward rather than backwards like its pre-evolution. Unlike the other two Dragonoid evolutions we took a look at, this version of Dragonoid does not appear to have had a final monster design when these sheets were made. The next design we'll be looking at is Tigrera, which, compared to the last few designs, is a bit underwhelming, but it also appears that Tigrera's early design differed considerably from its final one. At this stage in development, Tigrera's fold-out feet function more like Prius or Dragonoid, and the automatic opening mechanism was slightly different as well. The next design we're going to be taking a look at appears to be an early second evolution of Skyrus. This design, unlike the other designs in this video, is actually not found in the TV show or toy game at all. This design originally seemed to have functioned as a second evolution to Skyrus that would come in between Skyrus and Storm Skyrus, similar to how Delta Dragonoid and Dual Hydronoid served as in-between evolutions for Ultimate Dragonoid and Alpha Hydronoid respectively. This next design, simply referred to as Skyrus Evo 2 in the concept art, appears to be an early version of Storm Skyrus. Some similarities can be seen to Storm Skyrus in the wings and the tail, while the feet and the head feather are completely different from the final design. The next design we're going to be looking at is an early version of Gorum's ball form. Gorum's design appears to be a lot closer to its final design than many of the other designs we've gone over. The most notable difference is the lack of a spike bat in its left hand in the final design. This concept may have been later used with Boulderon, another Golem-based Bakugan in Season 4 that uses a spike ball weapon. Quite possibly one of the most different, and not to mention revealing designs, is the original design for single-headed Hydronoid. As you can tell, it doesn't resemble the final design at all, instead looking much more like its evolution Dual Hydronoid. This seems to explain why when the toy designers seemingly couldn't debug the anime Hydronoid's feet for a 28mm ball form, they released Dual Hydronoid in its place, as they probably had this mold ready, and all they would have had to do was remold Hydronoid's ball form and put the toy out. Another very revealing design is this piece of concept art for Naga, or as it's referred to here, Dragonoid X. As you can see, the ball form is almost identical to the form of Naga we got in Set D. Originally, it was long rumored that because the toy form of Naga in Set D was so much different than the model in the show, that the toy was actually an early design of Ultimate Dragonoid that was repurposed. This rumor can now lay to rest, as likely what happened was, similar to single-headed Hydronoid, the Naga CAD design from the anime was too hard to debug, and Spin Master released this version of early Naga in its place. The final design we'll be looking at today is Wyvern, or as it's referred to in early concept material, Dragonoid Z. Like Naga, it's almost completely different from not only its CAD model in the show, but also its final toy. The design shares the same feet as early Naga and Infinity Dragonoid, as well as borrowing the upward-facing horn from those two. These are all the designs we'll be looking at in today's video. Many of these designs show just how much changed during the development of Bakugan, and makes you wonder how much more is out there for us to learn. I'd like to give a special thank you to the Bakugan Wiki, which provided me with lots of information that you heard in this video today, and where I got the original tip about buying these sheets. Additionally, if you enjoyed this video, I plan on making more content about the development and production of the Bakugan franchise, which includes the Legacy series, Bakutech, and even the reboot. I'm also working on a full-length Bakugan documentary, so stay tuned for that as well, and don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter and Instagram for updates. Take care, guys.